What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today, I'm going to be covering Tier 4 of my offseason power rankings. These are the teams that I deem unlikely to make the playoffs for whatever reason, mostly because I feel like one side of the ball is not up to snuff with the other side of the ball. It goes both ways in this tier, so for some teams, I think their defense is better than their offense, and for some, I think their offense is better than their defense. For our first team here, our number 23 team, I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised. It is going to be the Arizona Cardinals here. And you will see why in a couple minutes, why I just think the Arizona Cardinals are going to underperform this season. So, key departures and additions, Chase Edmonds, who I thought was their best running back, better than James Conner, leaves. I felt like he was a really important piece of that offense. Christian Kirk leaves, heads to Jacksonville to become the number one wide receiver. Then some, older veterans in Max Garcia, Corey Peters. Jordan Phillips, their most productive pass rusher outside of Chandler Jones last season, leaves. Chandler Jones, speaking of him, leaves. Jordan Hicks, a longtime linebacker for this team, leaves. And Robert Alford, one of their best corners. So they bring in Marquis Brown, who was at Oklahoma with Kyler Murray. Bring in Trey McBride as a tight end and an interesting second-round pick. Bring over Will Hernandez, who has started the last few seasons for the Giants. J.J. Watt comes back off injury, and they draft some edge help in Majai Sanders and Cameron Thomas. We move into the offense for the Arizona Cardinals, which, in my opinion, is not the reason why this team is going to be bad at all. I think this offense is going to be electric. I have them 7th overall, starting with our first top 10 quarterback on this list in Kyler Murray at number 9. Special player Kyler Murray is. His ability to extend plays is phenomenal. I just think sometimes he comes up short in the big games. He has not been able to win the big game, which I think could define his career. And a lot of that, too, is on Cliff Kingsbury, but I think Murray has underperformed in the biggest games for the Cardinals. Running back, I have him 27th. I'm not the biggest fan of James Conner, personally. I thought that his production last season was somewhat overrated. And just to let Chase Edmonds walk out the door was just interesting because I think he fit their offense better. But Eno Benjamin, who I was really excited about out of Arizona State, I believe he was a 6th or a 7th round pick. Really excited to see what he can do. Keontae Ingram's an underrated receiving threat from USC as well. So I'm excited to see those guys come into the fold. Their weapons here are ranked 6th. If DeAndre Hopkins wasn't suspended, they'd probably be number 2. DeAndre Hopkins, to me, is, when healthy and when he's had his best, probably a top 3 receiver in football. There's just nothing like him. His physicality, his hand strength is just elite, to say the least. Marquis Brown took a big step last season, had a 1,000-yard season with Lamar Jackson. I think his chemistry with Kyler Murray will pick up where it left off at Oklahoma. He will be what they wanted Christian Kirk to be, what they wanted Andy Isabella to be. He will be a big addition to this offense. Rondale Moore, they will continue to use in a gadget-type role, getting him touches early. And then A.J. Green, who's a veteran here. Really nice physical presence with Hopkins leaving. He will be able to provide that. I know people clown him for the end of the Packers game last year, but A.J. Green was pretty good for them for this offense. And then don't sleep on Antoine Wesley, another guy that was featured heavily in that offense when DeAndre Hopkins was hurt. They have the tight end duo of Zach Ertz, Trey McBride, which I really like. Zach Ertz is one of the most consistent players in football over the last 7 to 8 seasons. And then Max Williams as well, who was really good for them last season before he got hurt, and then they traded for Zach Ertz, which is why I don't really understood why they brought in Trey McBride. He is a phenomenal talent at the tight end position, had him as a top 32 player, but I just felt like Max Williams would have been good enough for this team. Moving along to the offensive line here, they ranked 23rd. DJ Humphries is one of the most underrated players in football. Glad he got another extension here with them. Justin Pugh, longtime starter, he's fine. Rodney Hudson has been one of the best centers in the league when he can stay healthy. Will Hernandez, ever since his rookie year, just has been on a downward trend. Maybe he can revive something here in a different system. And then Kelvin Beachum is just a veteran tackle, replacement level at this point. Keep an eye on Josh Jones and Lecitus Smith for depth, as well as Marquise Haynes. Offensive coaching, I have them 8th. Cliff Kingsbury is a very good offensive mind. It's just sometimes I think that he gets in his own way. Average rank for them offensively is 11.97. Now is where we get into the concern for the Arizona Cardinals. This defense is the worst defense I have ever seen on paper from a playoff team going into the next season. I mean, this defense is just awful. It's the worst in the league, in my opinion. Their run defense is pitiful. They have no one up front that's really at all adequate at defending the run besides maybe J.J. Watt, if he's even out there. Marcus Golden, Rashard Lawrence, Zach Allen aren't great run defenders. Neither is Dennis Gardeck. You're expecting Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins to basically be your entire run defense. Nick Vigil as well, their third linebacker, is not a bad run defender in his own right, but you're expecting really Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins to be your entire run defense, which that's asking a lot out of them, to say the least. Their pass rush is ranked 30th. I like Marcus Golden. He's a solid 2 in this league. He has proven to be productive. But Devon Kennard was a 3 for a reason last year, and that's what he is. I like Majai Sanders coming in as a rookie. I think that's somebody to really keep an eye on. His bend and athleticism and quickness was really noteworthy in Cincinnati, but I don't think he's ready to just come in here and be like, okay, the number 2 pass rusher for Arizona. And then J.J. Watt, you would love for him to stay healthy. He's a beast when he is healthy, but he just has not been able to stay healthy for this team. Zach Allen has been a bust, second-round pick from Boston College. Really hope that you can get anything out of him this year. And then Kingsley Kiki's a guy to keep an eye on the inside. He's a good pass rusher, but probably more of a 2 or a 3 at this point. That's why they rank 30th. Linebacker, this is the highest I have them rated on defense, is 9th. I think that the duo of Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins can take a step up. Zaven Collins had a rough rookie year. They just were using Jordan Hicks a lot more, and Zaven Collins wasn't picking up. Similar to what Isaiah Simmons is. He came on late after really struggling in the first half of the season. I think that he will have, like Isaiah Simmons' second season, and be more equipped in this defense. And then Nick Vigil's a decent veteran to bring over, but after that, there's really nothing of noteworthy. The secondary I have ranked 32nd as well. Outside of Budda Baker and Byron Murphy, they just really have nothing. And it's a shame that Jeff Gladney, who I thought was going to be better in this defense, passed away. Rest in peace, Jeff Gladney, taken away from us too soon. But Byron Murphy's a really good slot corner. But after him, you have Marco Wilson, who really can't get any worse, so you're hoping from better things from Marco Wilson. But after that, I'm expecting Josh Jackson to be their third corner. He struggled in Green Bay, but I think he can turn it around here. And then I guess you have like Antonio Hamilton and Jace Whitaker. I think Antonio Hamilton is slotted to be their other outside corner, which is just pitiful. Their safety trio is nice. Budda Baker, really good player against the line of scrimmage, can cover. Not as well as you'd like, but he's a solid cover player, can match up against tight ends, really good in the box. Jalen Thompson's a really underrated piece on this defense, as well as Deonte Thompson, but I just don't think there's really anybody that's making plays besides Budda Baker and Byron Murphy, in my opinion. And then defensive coaching, they rank 29th. I'm just not a big fan of Vance Joseph at all, in my opinion. And then home field advantage, they are 15th for an average rank of 28.22. For overall, they are 23rd as a whole. Offense, like we talked about, 7th. I really expect this offense to continue to be explosive, but this defense is just pitiful at 32nd. Special teams, I have them at 21st, and then 22nd for culture. I think this is a make-or-break year for Cliff Kingsbury to get this team in a position where they can compete for an NFC title. It's going to be tough with that defense, but we'll see what they can do with an 18.7 rank overall. And then moving into their strengths and weaknesses here. For the Arizona Cardinals, I have offensive coaching as a strength, as that is Cliff Kingsbury's bread and butter. Quarterback play, because Kyler Murray is an elite or borderline elite quarterback in this league. Weapons, Kyler Murray has a load of weapons this year outside of DeAndre Hopkins. I think that they will be even more explosive on offense this year. And then weakness, I could have just put entire defense, but there are 3 that I think are their most concerning are run defense, pass rush, and secondary. I just don't think they have the players there to be successful at defense there. So that wraps up my number 23 team. We move on to my number 22 team, which is another team that you could say that I am lower on than others. It is the Miami Dolphins. And you will see why here in a minute, mainly Tua Tagovailoa. But key departures here, Brian Flores, their head coach. Couldn't believe he was fired personally. Stephen Ross, how I despise you. George Godsey, Eric Studsville, those guys were sharing the play call duties as the OC. They are both headed out of here. Devontae Parker is traded to New England, and Jesse Davis, one of their best O-linemen last year, leaves. Their additions, Mike McDaniel comes in as head coach. Frank Smith is OC. They bring in Sony Michel and Raheem Mostert, along with Chase Edmonds at running back. I forgot to put him on there. Tyreek Hill at receiver, along with Cedric Wilson. Teron Armstead, a veteran tackle, something they have needed tremendously over the last couple of years. Conor Williams as a guard. Melvin Ingram is out on the edge. And then I put Channing Tindall there as linebacker from Georgia. I felt like he was definitely somebody that was underrated production-wise in college. He played the least amount of any of those Georgia linebackers, but had some of the most productive numbers out of them. So I felt like that was interesting. As we move into the offense here, this is the reason I'm lower on this team, along with their head coach, Mike McDaniel, who I just don't think has a lot of experience, but we'll get to him later. Starting with the offense, they rank 22nd, and it's quarterback to start with. Tua Tagovailoa is not a good quarterback. There's no other way around it. I have him coming into the season as 27th. Could he improve? Absolutely, especially with these weapons that I have ranked 4th and an improved offensive line, but I'm just not betting on it. I'm not a Tua guy. I wasn't a Tua guy when he came out. I think that this is a make or break year for him, and honestly, if he's not doing so well, they could turn to Teddy Bridgewater, who I do think at this point in time is a better quarterback than Tua, but they're not going to start him with Tua. They have deemed as the franchise quarterback. Running backs moving on, I think this is probably the most improved thing of this year. They actually have a running game. No offense to Myles Gaskin. I actually do like him as a player, but he was just not cutting it as RB1. They bring in Raheem Mostert, who's a perfect wide zone fit for the scheme. Knows this offense very well coming in from San Francisco. Chase Edmonds, who's your James White in this offense. Receiving back. Going to get a few rushes a game, but really going to be out there for the pass game. And then Sony Michel's a nice change of pace back. Won a Super Bowl last year as the leading rusher for the Los Angeles Rams. The weapons are ranked 4th. Tyreek Hill, I deem the second best receiver in football and the best weapon in football, in my opinion. He just makes everything so much easier for your offense. Jalen Waddle had a fantastic rookie season. Similar player. Speed is the name of this offense. Cedric Wilson I really like as a number 3. Really intriguing guy, had a really productive season last year for Dallas. Preston Williams is your big body threat here. And Lynn Bowden Jr., got to keep an eye on, played running back, receiver, quarterback at Kentucky. I deem him to be a big part of this offense. Maybe a little mini Debo role. Trent Sherfield, Eric Ezukanma, guys to keep an eye on there in the depth. And then Mike Gesicki has been in trade talks. We do not know if he is traded, but if he is, I do like Hunter Long behind him. Durham Smythe as well is there for depth. Moving into the offensive line, I have them ranked 22nd. Definitely much more improved than it has been in years past. Teron Armstead is a stud left tackle when healthy. Conor Williams is a really solid guard. Michael Dieter at center hasn't worked out to this point, but I still do believe in him. I believed in him coming out of Wisconsin. Robert Hunt was their best offensive lineman last year at that right guard spot, and then they have Liam Eichenberg there as well. Austin Jackson, Greg Little, notable depth at tackle. Solomon Kinley, notable depth at guard there as well. Offensive coaching, I have them 15th. That's Mike McDaniel's bread and butter. Average rank for them on offense is an 18.20. We move into the defensive side of the ball here for Miami. This is the reason they could make the playoffs, in my opinion, is if their defense stays stout like it did last year and their offense takes a step up, which I'm somewhat predicting, but not fully buying into. Their defense I have ranked 11th. Starting with their run defense, that is ranked 10th. They have a lot of guys here that are really set up for the run defense game. Melvin Ingram's a good run defender. Jalen Phillips is a better run defender than people give him credit for. But Emmanuel Ogbah, Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis are the guys up front that are anchors in the run game. This is where they make their money, is in the run game. Wilkins especially, phenomenal run defender. Run it at the linebacker position, they don't have as good of run defenders. Jerome Baker's more of a cover player. Landon Roberts is a really good thumping middle linebacker. And Duke Riley's kind of whatever there. Andrew Van Ginkel, kind of a hybrid guy. He will be in there as well. Zach Sealer, a guy to keep an eye on. He's a very good run defender as well. Pass rush, they're 23rd. I think they could take a step up here. I love Emmanuel Ogbah, man. Emmanuel Ogbah was a phenomenal pass rusher. I think with the addition of Melvin Ingram, that will boost their pass rush for sure. Andrew Van Ginkel's another guy to watch out for there in that hybrid role. Jalen Phillips, I expect to take a step up. He had a lot of sacks and not a lot of pressures, so I expect him to get more pressures, maybe around the same amount of sacks. Interior-wise, Wilkins is an okay pass rusher. Zach Sealer is actually probably a better pass rusher than Wilkins, but nothing super special there. Moving on to their linebackers. The lowest ranking I have them on their defense is 24th. Mainly they're just unproven and they don't have a ton of versatility. I think Van Ginkel's probably the most versatile player, is more that hybrid kind of Kyle Van Noy role. And Landon Roberts is more of just your thumping middle linebacker, mainly in there on run defense downs. Jerome Baker is an okay run defender, very good pass cover player. I think probably their most versatile player outside of Van Ginkel is the rookie Channing Tindall. I expect him to get more snaps, especially later in the season here. Duke Riley, Brennan Scarlett's another one of those hybrid guys to keep an eye on. And then their secondary, which is the highest ranking I have on this team, is 3rd. Xavier Howard is a phenomenal ball-hawking corner. Byron Jones is a lockdown. Not a ton of ball production, but super lockdown. Noah Igbenogany, I'm expecting to take a step up here as that slot guy. Super fast, agile, reminds me a lot of Jonathan Jones. Nick Needham can play inside or outside. He's probably going to be their dime guy. Keon Crossan, a guy to watch, has been in multiple different systems and a good special teamer. Javon Holland came on the scene last year as safety 1 coming out of the class from Oregon. He was a phenomenal player. Eric Rowe can play corner or safety. Really good matchup player there for them. Brandon Jones as well. I loved coming out of Texas. Really good box player. Can come down and be an impact in the run defense game. Verone McKinley III. Dolphins fans, keep an eye on him. I thought he was a 3rd-round talent. You picked him up as an undrafted free agent. Probably one of the best moves of draft season. He will be on the field for you this year. He's a phenomenal player. Can play free safety, can play strong safety, can match up against tight ends, can play some nickel. He is a very versatile player. Dolphins fans, keep an eye on him. Was one of my favorite moves of the draft. And defensive coaching, I have them ranked 10th, as this defense was phenomenal last season. Josh Boyer staying here as the DC. And home field advantage, I have them as 19th for an average rank of 13.38. Moving on to their overall, they are my 22nd overall team with the 22nd offense, 11th defense, like we just talked about. 11th special teams, 29th for culture. It's not that I don't believe in Mike McDaniel. I believe in what he has learned from Kyle Shanahan and everything, but he's just not very experienced. He has only been an OC for 1 year, and really that doesn't really count because Kyle Shanahan's calling the plays. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs here as head coach. Moving into their strengths and weaknesses, their average rank there is 18.65. So moving into their strengths and weaknesses now. Strengths, offensive coaching. Mike McDaniel, phenomenal offensive coach. They have a really good offensive coaching system here. Defensive coaching as well. Probably should have put him in there, but versatile running backs. I think they have a lot of backs that can play a lot of different roles. Definitely an upgrade over last year where they didn't really have a run game at all. And then weapons. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Mike Gesicki. Phenomenal group of weapons there for Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't have any excuse here. Weaknesses, inexperienced head coach. I talked about that. Quarterback play, just Tua has not been up to snuff. And for all of you pulling the stats that Tua's a winning quarterback, look at Tua's stats in those games and tell me how many of those games you won because of Tua. That's right, 0. Linebackers as well, I have as a weakness here, just because they don't have a bona fide star there. They have a lot of guys that are just okay or are not very versatile. They really need a guy to kind of head that. I think it could be Jerome Baker, although I think his run defense is not great, like I talked about, but I also think that could be Channing Tindall, the rookie, so watch out for that. So that concludes my number 22 team. Moving into my number 21 team. Another team that's maybe lower than a lot of people are going to expect. For me, it is the Minnesota Vikings, and I will get into the reasons as to why here in a minute, but we start with their key departures and additions. So their entire staff's gone because Mike Zimmer, who is head coach, defensive coordinator, is leaving. Clint Kubiak at offensive coordinator. Tyler Conklin, who filled in at tight end for Irv Smith Jr. after he got hurt in preseason. Mason Cole played at center and guard for them last season. A bunch of defensive linemen are gone in Michael Pierce, Sheldon Richardson, and Everson Griffin. Veteran linebacker Nick Vigil is gone. Cornerback Rashad Breeland was gone. I believe he was released at some point in the season. Mackenzie Alexander's gone, and Xavier Woods, veteran safety, heads to Carolina as well. Their key additions, so they redo the entire staff here with Kevin O'Connell coming in at the head coach, as he was the OC for the Rams last season. Wes Phillips comes in as OC. Ed Donatel comes in as DC. Irv Smith Jr. comes back from injury. I think that's big. I think he's primed for a big year. Jesse Davis comes over from Miami. Veteran offensive lineman, can play both tackle and on the interior. They draft Ed Ingram from LSU. Harrison Phillips comes over from the Bills. Daniil Hunter, they get back from injury. They bring in Zadarius Smith over from Green Bay. Looking to be one of the most primed edge duos this year if they can stay healthy. Jordan Hicks comes over from Arizona at linebacker. They draft Brian Asamoah and Andrew Booth Jr., bring over Chandon Sullivan from Green Bay again, and draft Lewis Cena at the end of the first round. So we get into their offense here. This is the reason the Vikings will make the playoffs, in my opinion, especially if Justin Jefferson has the season that I think they will, as they come in as the 12th ranked offense, with Kirk Cousins coming in at number 13 at quarterback, higher than most people expect. I think Kirk Cousins is one of those guys where his production just goes under the radar because people just deem Kirk Cousins as complete average. I think Kirk Cousins is in this tier where it's like, sometimes you can win the game because of him, but you're also going to lose the game because of him sometimes, I think. Because Kirk Cousins at times can play like a high-level quarterback. We've seen it. But there's other times where I think he just gets too conservative. I think that's kind of him and Derek Carr that are in this kind of same tier. But I do think that people do underrate Kirk Cousins. I think it's almost criminal at this point how underrated Kirk Cousins is. Running back, I have them ranked third. I think Dalvin Cook is one of the best pure runners in football. Really underrated receiving threat as well. Alexander Madison's a really good backup to have. He's kind of a poor man's Dalvin Cook in a way. Kene Nwangu, really explosive back from Iowa State. One of the best kick returners in football, too. I believe he had 2 return for touchdowns last season. And then they draft Ty Chandler as well, another guy to keep an eye on there in the backfield. Don't know how much he will play this year, but in the future, he will probably be the Alexander Madison replacement. Moving on to the weapons here, they are ranked 8th. Justin Jefferson, I think, is a top 3 receiver in football personally. I think he's going to one-up Cooper Kupp seasons, have 2,000 yards, win the Triple Crown, and win the Offensive Player of the Year. That is my pick. That is a little spoiler alert for my awards predictions, but I just felt like I would throw it out there. Adam Thielen's one of the best number 2s in the league right now. His problem has just been health. He's been very productive when he's been on the field. KJ Osborne surprised a lot of people last season as a 7th-round pick from Miami. He was very productive in the Minnesota offense last year, looking to be even more productive this season. An underrated guy, but I think he has a lower ceiling. Olabisi Johnson, who was supposed to be the number 3 season receiver last season for the Vikings, but got hurt, looks to be fighting for that role against KJ Osborne this season. Amir Smith-Marset, they drafted last year out of Iowa. Thought it was a little bit of a reach, but maybe he can be more incorporated in this offense. Guys to keep an eye on in terms of depth are Blake Prohl and Jalen Naylor. Jalen Naylor was a draft pick this year. Blake Prohl was an undrafted pickup last year. And then tight ends, Irv Smith Jr., prime for a big season. Zach Davidson's an athletic freak from a small school in Missouri. Those are the tight end duo for them. Offensive line, I have them ranked 21st. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but not great. Christian Darrisaw, prime for a big year 2 after he struggled with health. Ezra Cleveland is a fine guard. Garrett Bradbury was obliterated in run game last season. You're hoping for better results there. Wyatt Davis as well wasn't great last season. You're hoping for better results. And then Brian O'Neill is your lock at right tackle. Depth to look out for, Jesse Davis, Ed Ingram as well, along with Chris Reed there. Offensive coaching, I have them ranked 21st. I think Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. He just has to prove himself more, and they are finishing with an average rank of 14.47. Then we move into the defense, which I think could hold this team back. I have them ranked 20th. They're not egregiously terrible, but they're not anything special at all either. So run defense, they are ranked 19th here. So I think that they're more, pass rush oriented. I think that's more of a strength than run defense. But Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith aren't terrible run defenders, to say the least. Dalvin Tomlinson, Harrison Phillips, it's more of where they make their money. And Armon Watts is a decent player as well. Eric Hendricks, Jordan Hicks are more coverage linebackers. They don't really have that guy that can come in there and be that thumper for them. And then depth-wise, Jalen Twyman's a guy that I would look out for, along with Jonathan Bullard and DJ Wonham. Brian Asamoah, Chaz Surratt, they're not great run defenders as well. Pass rush, they ranked 11th. I know Vikings fans might be a little bit upset about this, that it's a little bit low. But Danielle Hunter has not been healthy in 2 seasons. Zadarius Smith has not been healthy in 2 seasons. However, if they do stay healthy, they could be as high as 3 to 5 range. Because Danielle Hunter is an absolute freak. Zadarius Smith is also an absolute freak. Dalvin Tomlinson, more of a pocket pusher up front, along with Armon Watts. But hey, they're there as well. But if these two don't stay healthy, they don't have any depth behind them. DJ Wonham is probably a 3 or a 4 on a championship team. Most likely a 4. So you don't really have anybody behind them, which is why I have them 11th, is because of the injury concerns. Linebackers, I have them at 6th. Eric Hendricks is a freaking stud, man. People don't talk about this dude enough. His zone coverage IQ is probably the best in football. Him and Fred Warner, I think, are 1A, 1B in that regard. But Eric Hendricks is phenomenal in zone coverage. He covers players, not grass, which is a technique that more people should learn in zone coverage playing linebacker. Jordan Hicks is also a really good cover player in his own right. And then it's kind of the fight for the third linebacker, whether it's Troy Dye, Chaz Surratt, Brian Asamoah, fighting for that third linebacker role. All young guys. Somebody got to step up there because Kendricks and Jordan Hicks have been known to miss time as well. Secondary, I have them ranking 21st. There's no real standouts here besides an old Harrison Smith. Patrick Peterson's a great player in his own right. He's just getting older. Cam Dantzler, I like, just needs to take another step up this year. And then with Andrew Booth hurt, it's probably going to be Chandon Sullivan there as the slot corner. I actually really like him. And then a Caleb Evans behind him. Andrew Booth, I felt like he should have been a first-round pick, but I understood why he fell out due to those injury concerns. I do think when he's back here, he's going to be a really, really nice piece for this Vikings secondary. A guy that I did not think was a first-round pick that they took in the first round was Lewis Cine. I felt like he was slightly underdeveloped. They just had him playing high safety and not really doing anything else. I felt like he wasn't a great tackler, and his instincts weren't as good as some other people. Cameron Bynum as well there as a nice safety 3. Their defensive coaching comes in at 30th, and their home field advantage comes in at 4th there for an average ranking of 17.58. We move on to their overall team here, as they're my number 21 team overall with the 12th best offense, 20th best defense. Special teams, I have them ranked at 17, and culture, I have them ranked at special teams, I have them ranked at 29, and culture, I have them ranked 27th. I really do like the Kevin O'Connell hire. It's just going to take a little bit of time for him to earn that reputation and get up there, because he's similar to that Mike McDaniel, where he wasn't really calling plays because Sean McVay was the OC. They finish with a average rank of 17.9. We move into their strengths and weaknesses. Offensive coaching, big strength there. Kevin O'Connell learning under one of the best young minds in football in Sean McVay. Weapons, really big strength for this team, having Justin Jefferson, having Adam Thielen, having a young tight end in Irv Smith Jr., and a stud running back in Dalvin Cook. And their linebackers as well. That duo of Eric Hendricks and Jordan Hicks is one to be reckoned with. Weaknesses, health on defense. How and will Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Eric Hendricks, Jordan Hicks stay healthy? That's a big thing. That's a big reason why I'm kind of lower on Minnesota, because I'm expecting those guys to be hurt. Now, however, these guys are healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if this team pushes for the NFC North crown. Defensive coaching I have as a weakness. Just there's not a lot of experience there on that side. And then secondary as well, I have as a weakness for this team because there's just not a lot of proven talent there besides Patrick Peterson and Harrison Smith. So that has been my number 21 team, and I know my number 20 team is going to get people fired up because they're expecting this team to be in the more bona fide playoff teams region. But I do not have them there for a specific reason that you will learn in a minute here. But my number 20 team is the Denver Broncos. What is that? This kid doesn't know what he's talking about? Well, let me explain. So, starting with their key departures and additions, Vic Fangio, head coach DC, on the way out the door. Pat Shurmur, OC, on the way out to the door. For many, delight of Broncos fans. They lose both quarterbacks that played time last year in Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. They lose Tim Patrick to injury this year in training camp. Just such a brutal blow. And another reason why this team dropped, because I think Tim Patrick was going to be a really important piece to this offense. They lose Noah Fant in the Russell Wilson trade. Bobby Massey, one of their starting tackles last season. Shelby Harris, they give away in the Russell Wilson trade as well. Alexander Johnson is out the door here. Kyle Fuller and Bryce Callahan are also out the door here. Their additions, Nathaniel Hackett comes in as head coach after being the OC over in Green Bay. Justin Outen is brought in to be the OC. Ajiro Vero comes in to be the defensive coordinator. They bring over Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson to man this team. KJ Hamler comes back from injury. They draft Greg Dulcich at tight end. They bring over DJ Jones as an interior defensive lineman. Bradley Chubb comes back from injury. They bring over Randy Gregory to pair with him as well for a nice edge duo. Nick Bonito they draft for a third edge there. Josie Jewell comes back from injury at linebacker, and K'Wan Williams comes over from San Francisco, one of the best slot corners in the game and somebody that a lot of people are not talking about here. So then we move into the offense for the Denver Broncos, which I don't think is the problem with this team as they are ranked 9th overall with 7th at the quarterback position. I think Russell Wilson is getting way too much hate for the season he had last year. He had his worst season of his career last season, where he had like 3,600 passing yards, and he still had 25 touchdowns and 6 picks, and people are calling the dude bad. Like, no, he's still elite, man. Get off him, man. Get off his back. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in football. They bring in Josh Johnson, who's played for like 14 teams as backup. Brett Rippon is the third string in there as well. Running backs, I have them maybe a little bit lower than Broncos fans are expecting. I have them 11th. They have a really nice 1-2 duo of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. I think Javonte Williams will take that next step this season, but they also aren't quite as versatile. There's not really a guy that can come in there and catch the football. Melvin Gordon's okay at that, but they're not super versatile there. And then they have Mike Boone and Damare Crockett there as depth pieces. Now, the weapons are lower at 17th, and I will say they're pretty low, but if Tim Patrick was healthy here, they probably would be pushing top 10. I think that's where I had him last time. But Cortland Sutton, when this dude came out of SMU and he made it out of the first round, I was like, that is an absolute mistake. He's going to make people pay, and he has. Cortland Sutton could be a top 10 receiver in football this year with the help of Russell Wilson there. Jerry Judy, another guy that struggled last season. I think he's going to be better this year. He's a phenomenal route runner, one of the top 5 best route runners in the league. The issue has been concentration and hands with him. They get KJ Hamler back, who's that deep threat up over the top there. Kendall Hinton has been making plays in preseason, man. For a former quarterback, he's really stepping it up there as a 4th option there at receiver. They have Tyree Cleveland as well, who's another name to watch out for. Albert Okweg-Bunam gets a chance here to start at tight end. Really athletic dude. Really similar player to Noah Fant, and then Greg Dulcich coming in here as well. Eric Tomlinson, Eric Saubert are guys for more blocking types at tight end there as well. O-line, I have them at 16th. So middle of the road, Garrett Bowles came on late in his career, late towards the end of his rookie contract, I should say. Really good left tackle there, really solid player. Dalton Reisner, not a great athlete, but just a solid run-blocking guy there at left guard. Lloyd Cushenberry came on last season as a solid center after really looking like a bust in his first season. Graham Glasgow, really solid right guard veteran, played a lot, and then they bring over Billy Turner, who's another nice veteran that can play inside or outside for this team. Looking at depth, and Tane Moody, Quinn Miners, really nice young guys there in the interior portion of their offensive line to keep an eye on. Offensive coaching, I have them ranked 13th. Nathaniel Hackett is a very, very good offensive mind here, and their average rank is 12.47 on the offensive side of the ball. Again, not the side that I am most concerned with. It is their defense that I'm most concerned with as they come in as the 24th ranked defense. I'm not really sold on this Broncos defense quite yet. So they come in ranked 24th here for defense. Pass rush is ranked, or run defense is ranked 26th, sorry. Their edge defenders aren't great run defenders. Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb aren't really making noise in the running game except for some splash plays. Draymond Jones is more of a pass rusher. Deshaun Williams and DJ Jones are going to be more of your run defenders. Josie Jewell is more of your, he's can play against the run. He's just more of a cover player, in my opinion. Alex Singleton, good run defender, but nothing super special. And then they have more pass rush types on the edge. IDL to keep an eye on in the run game is Mike Purcell, McTelvin Edgem, and Iyome Wazurike from Iowa State, their draft pick. Moving on to their pass rush, which is going to be lower than people expect, I think, at 24th. I'm just not sold. I'm not sold. Randy Gregory had a good season last year, wins with a lot of speed. Draymond Jones is a good interior rusher. DJ Jones is fine. I think a lot of people are high on Chubb from the name, but he hasn't really produced since his rookie season, really. I really need to see it from Bradley Chubb this year if he's going to be that guy or not. But they do have a lot of depth here. Nick Benito's a really raw prospect coming out of Oklahoma, just a speed rusher off the edge really at this point in time. Malik Reed's been really good when he's been out there. Has been a really good replacement for Bradley Chubb. Jonathan Cooper was a good 7th round pick last year, and they moved Baron Browning to edge, so somebody to keep an eye on. He played off-ball linebacker last season and when he was at Ohio State, but an interesting guy to watch there. Moving on to their linebackers, I have them ranked 28th. They're not great. Josie Jewell is fine. I like him. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does coming off injury. And then they have Alex Singleton, who was, again, fine in Philadelphia. And then they have Justin Strand, Barrington Wade, Jonas Griffin. Somebody will be looking to take that third linebacker role as they just cut Joe Schobert. And then their secondary, which is the best part of their defense, I have ranked 11th. Pat Surtain, absolute stud. Said he was CB1 coming out. Just a freaking stud, man. Ronald Darby, he's fine as your CB2. I'm not really super excited about that. Kawan Williams, this dude was locked down last season for San Francisco. One of the best slot corners in the game. Maybe top 3, and no one's really talking about him. Damari Mathis was a really good pick out of Pittsburgh there. And then for their depth, Bless Austin, Michael Ojemudia, veteran guys that have played a lot of snaps. And this safety room. Justin Simmons. Top 3 safety in football. I said it. He's a top 3 safety in football. He's absolutely phenomenal. Really good at playing over the top. Can play the run game. Phenomenal against tight ends. That's probably where he does his best work. Karim Jackson at 34 years old or whatever. Still one of the best run defending safeties in football. Can still cover. Was a former corner in Houston. He played a lot of corner at the beginning of his career, and they moved him to strong safety. He's played a lot of football in his career. Phenomenal player. Caden Stearns looking to make more of a jump here in his second season out of Texas, and then they drafted DeLauren Turner-Yell, a guy to keep your eye on. Defensive coaching, I have them ranked 28th there. Jiro Every, just not very experienced at this point in time. And home field advantage, I have them ranked 13th. Big advantage playing at that altitude for sure for Denver there. And then home field advantage, average rank there are 21.21. For their overall team, they are my 20th best team with the 9th best offense, 24th best defense. They're 17th for special teams and then 25th for culture. I think Nathaniel Hackett can improve that ranking as well because I thought he was a great signing for an average rank of 17.05. Looking at Denver's strengths and weaknesses here. So for their strengths, I have an elite quarterback. They haven't had one since Peyton Manning. Their running back duo, I think, is a really big strength. Going to be able to keep those guys fresh throughout. Their secondary is phenomenal with Surtain, Simmons, Jackson, and others. But I have for weaknesses lack of star power on defense, more specifically in the front seven. I think they have it in the secondary, but front seven, they really don't have it. I think their run defense is a big weakness. They're more suited to rush the passer than defend the run. And then their linebackers, I just think, are not very good in my personal opinion. So that wraps up my number 20th team, and the Broncos fans are really going to be mad when I announce my number 19 team because they're going to be like, how is this team ahead of us? So we move into my number 19 team. It is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Even with the Deshaun Watson suspension, they are ranked 19th. So moving into their key departures and additions, we have Baker Mayfield leaving, heading to Carolina. It looks really good, by the way. Rashard Higgins following him to Carolina. Jarvis Landry, the most bum receiver in football at this point in time, heading to New Orleans. Austin Hooper out the door. Younger talent coming in to replace him there. J.C. Treader retires from football after being released here. One of the best centers in football. Really underrated player. Malik McDowell, Malik Jackson head out the door. And Troy Hill at slot corner heads out as well. Key additions here, Deshaun Watson, who's only going to be allowed to play 6 games here. Jacoby Brissette will be the starter for the other 11. Omari Cooper, they finally get a bona fide number 1 receiver here after Odell Beckham left out the door. One of the most underrated players in football right now, in my opinion. David Bell, hated the pick there in the 3rd round. Hopefully he can be their 3rd receiver and be productive for them. Jack Conklin comes back off of injury here. Taven Bryan coming in as a veteran IDL option. Perion Winfrey, they drafted in the 3rd or 4th round, I believe. Really good pick, in my opinion. They bring over Chase Winovich in a swap with him and Mac Wilson with the Patriots. Alex Wright, they brought in from UAB in the 3rd round, and Martin Emerson as well, they brought in from Mississippi State. So now we go into Cleveland's offense here, which I have ranked 17th. Starting with the quarterback position, I have them ranked 23rd. So this does account for the Deshaun Watson suspension. So Jacoby Brissette will be starting 11 games. I have him as the 31st ranked quarterback. Not the 32nd base. I thought about maybe putting him there potentially, but I do think he's better than Drew Lock, but not better than Trubisky. And even if he was 32nd or 31st, it doesn't really make a difference. They would still be 23rd. I did the calculation myself. Deshaun Watson, I have 7th for quarterback whenever he is in the game. So they are 23rd there. They also have Josh Dobbs and Josh Rosen in their quarterback room. So some notable names there as well. Running backs are first. Their depth is crazy. They have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, who I do think they should trade personally. Just you get some value for him here now. You have Dearness Johnson, you have Jerome Ford, and you have Demetric Felton, who more than can bring that production from Kareem Hunt. In my opinion, they should trade him. But just a phenomenal group of running backs. Nick Chubb, fantastic player, just needs to stay healthy, and this team can really crank it up. Then we go to their weapons. They're 24th. Outside of Amari Cooper, they don't really have much. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I thought was a steal for them way back when they drafted him in the 6th round. He's a really good player. He just lacks the ability to separate, but he is a good player for them there. Anthony Schwartz is just a pure deep threat. He really needs to develop his routes, but I wouldn't give up on him yet. Kevin Stefanski has been known to be able to develop those guys. David Bell's probably going to be their 3rd slot receiver here from day one. He's just not a great athlete. I don't think he has a high ceiling. I think he's going to be kind of like Jarvis Landry, but just not as productive. Jakeem Grant was a brutal blow, losing kind of an athletic guy to get the ball to in certain situations there. He goes down with injury. There's really no notable depth. They did draft Michael Woods in the 2nd round, or in the 6th round, sorry. Michael Woods is 2nd in the 6th round. But I don't really deem him as a notable player. I mean, he's probably going to get on the field, but I didn't really like him coming out of Oklahoma. Their tight end duo is really good with David Njoku and Harrison Bryant. Finally, David Njoku is getting the shot that he deserves to really be a tight end 1. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season here. Then their O-line's ranked 7th. I dropped them down a little bit due to the injury of Nick Harris. They also had Dawson Deaton injured from Texas Tech, so we don't really know who's going to play center right now. Jedrick Wills, I thought was the best tackle coming out in his draft class. He's been really good. He's a really good pass protector. Needs to work on his run blocking. Batonio is one of the best guards in the game. Super consistent player. Wyatt Teller, one of the best run blocking guards in the game. Struggles in pass pro a little bit, but he has gotten better over the last couple of years. And then Jack Conklin, one of the best right tackles in football. Notable depth here, Chris Hubbard played a lot of football. Same with James Hudson III. Ethan Pochich is probably going to take that center spot, but also look out for Drew Forbes and Blake Hance there as well. Offensive coaching, I have them 6th. Stefanski is a phenomenal offensive coach. And then for their average ranking on offense, I have them at a 15.71. And then we move to the defensive side of the ball, which I have them ranked 18th, so not terrible. Going on to their run defense ranking, I have them at 25th. Garrett's a good run defender, not as good as he is of a pass rusher. Obviously, Jadeveon Clowney is a better run defender than he is a pass rusher. That's where he really strides and makes a difference. But really on the interior, they have nothing. Jordan Elliott, Taven Bryan are not good football players at all, let alone run defenders. JOK is not a great run defender. He's more suited for coverage. He's more of that modern will linebacker. Anthony Walker Jr. and Sione Takitaki are solid run defenders as well. There's not really very many guys you're looking for in the run game to help you on the interior. Tommy Togiai is a good run defender along with Perion Winfrey. There's not really anybody on the edge. For linebackers, Tony Fields, Jacob Phillips will probably see some rotation in there, but they're not great options. Moving on to the pass rush, I have them 14th. So for me personally, when it comes to pass rush, I would rather have 4 solid guys than 1 elite guy and 3 just mediocre guys, which is what Cleveland has. Myles Garrett, to me, is probably the best pass rusher in football when Khalil Mack's not healthy. I think, personally, Khalil Mack's the best edge rusher in football when he's healthy. Don't tell Steeler fans that, because I think Myles Garrett is just an absolute freak. He's a stud. He doesn't have the help around him like TJ Watt does, and he consistently makes plays. Taven Bryan, Jordan Elliott, anything you get out of them at all is great. Jadeveon Clowney, he's not as good of a pass rusher as run defender, but he's still very solid, will get his dues. And Chase Winovich is a guy to keep an eye on there for a rotational guy, and Perion Winfrey is a solid pass rusher coming out of Oklahoma. Linebackers are 23rd. They're just more one-dimensional. Everybody's one-dimensional. JOK is more of that pass cover guy, can defend the run, more of a run and chase guy, run defending. Anthony Walker is more of your thumper, guy that's going to be in there on run defense. He's an okay cover player. Sione Takitaki, similar to the same thing, can blitz a little bit as well. And then Jacob Phillips, Tony Fields as well there for some solid depth. Secondary, this is the best ranking on their defense with 5th. Denzel Ward, stud cornerback, absolutely phenomenal. Greg Newsome II was a really good pick. I was underrating him a lot coming out of Northwestern, but it was a solid pick. Greedy Williams is a good player. He just needs to be able to stay healthy. Martin Emerson adds a nice young gun in there as well to the secondary, and he has looked really good in preseason, by the way. Behind him, Nate Metters, decent guy there. After that, not really much. Grant Delpit, primed safety number 1 here with John Johnson and Ronnie Harrison as well. Richard LeCount, look out for him as well. Really good safety room. Those guys are versatile. They can play in the box, up high, and they can cover tight ends as well. Play it in the slot. Defensive coaching, I have them 23rd, and home field advantage, I have them 14th for an average ranking of 14.92. So the Browns are my 19th team overall here. As the overall comes up on your screen with the 17th best offense, the 18th best defense, 25th best special teams, and 12th best culture. I think Kevin Stefanski is a borderline top 10 head coach. I think another playoff run, maybe an AFC North title would prove that as well, as they are 17 even for their average ranking. As we move on to Cleveland's strengths and weaknesses here, their strengths are for sure running back depth. They have the deepest running back room I have ever seen here. Offensive line, one of the best units in football. And then secondary, again, one of the best units in football, and a lot of young talent there as well. Weaknesses, I put quarterback play just because Jacoby Brissett's going to be the quarterback for most of the year. Receiver depth, they don't really have anything beyond Amari Cooper. I do like DPJ, but I'm looking to see if he can take that next step or not. And then run defense I have as one of their weaknesses. So now we move on to our number 18 team here, who was the number 1 seed last year in the AFC in the Tennessee Titans. And I know Titans fans are probably going to be unhappy about this ranking as well, but I will explain that here throughout this segment. So key departures, A.J. Brown, your number 1 receiver, gone. Traded to Philadelphia and looks very good to say the least. Julio Jones out the door. He heads to Tampa Bay. Chester Rogers leaving as well. Anthony Firkser, I believe he's with, Atlanta. And then Michael Pruitt as well leaving. David Kesenberry, veteran tackle. Roger Saffold, one of the best guards in football, heads to Buffalo. Jayon Brown, Rashawn Evans, 2 linebackers heading out the door. And then Jack Rabbit Jenkins and Dane Cruikshank, 2 members of the secondary heading out the door. Key additions here, Malik Willis drafted in the 3rd round. Probably going to sit 2 years then play, but he has had an interesting preseason, some highs and some lows there. Hassan Haskins coming in at running back for them. Then they add 3 receivers. Robert Woods in a trade from the Rams. Treylon Burks was my number 1 receiver and is primed to replace A.J. Brown in that role here with their 1st round pick out of Arkansas. Kyle Phillips, really solid slot receiver, a guy that was not talked about enough coming out of the draft from UCLA. They bring in Austin Hooper over from Cleveland, draft Chiga Okonkwo, who is going to be a freaking menace in this offense. Draft Nicholas Petit-Ferre, wasn't a big fan of that pick, thought it was a little early, but adds some tackle depth. They bring in Jamarco Jones as an interior offensive line depth. Zach Cunningham, who I know played for them last year, but I'm adding as an addition here as he's finally with them for a full season. Caleb Farley's coming back from injury. He has looked good in preseason. And they draft Roger McCreary in the 2nd round. We go to the offense here. They're ranked 23rd. This is the reason why I do not think they're going to make the playoffs. They just lost a lot on this side of the football, and I don't know if they can make up for it. Ryan Tannehill is 17th at quarterback. Honestly, thought he was going to be lower. Tannehill, I'm not a big fan of personally, but I think he's the best of the rest, if you deem that a category, I guess. He just makes a lot of stupid mistakes, in my opinion, that really hold this team back from being very, very good. Malik Willis as well, interesting guy there behind him. Did not deserve to go in the 3rd round. I was lower on him, but he had no business just falling to the 3rd round like that. Moving on to the running backs, they are 4th. Yes, I have them 4th because Derrick Henry is coming off an injury, but I do think that Derrick Henry is probably the best running back in football when he's healthy. There's just no one like him. Nobody with the speed, size like him. There's just nobody like it. Hassan Haskins as the backup there. Probably going to be their short yardage guy. Dontrell Hilliard will be in on 3rd downs along with Jeremy McNichols, maybe some Trenton Cannon and Jordan Wilkins mix in there as well. Weapons are 26th. Taking a big step back from last year as Treylon Burks becomes their new number 1 receiver. This dude's a stud. I'm telling you, he's going to be a stud. He hasn't looked great so far, but I trust he's going to be really good. Robert Woods is a really nice veteran pickup there. Has played a lot of football and is really stout. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I think, is primed for a big year. Somebody to watch out for, maybe in your fantasy leagues to pick up. Kyle Phillips, really solid slot receiver, probably going to play there till Robert Woods comes back. Des Fitzpatrick was a former 4th round pick or something from Louisville, so somebody to keep an eye on there. Don't really have anybody else looking there at depth. Austin Hooper, Chiga Okonkwo are some really solid tight end duos. For guys that you're looking for depth-wise here, Jeff Swain, Briley Moore in the tight end room are guys to watch out for. Offensive line, they are ranked 24th here. Taylor Lewan, one of the best left tackles in football, super underrated at this point, but getting up there in age. Aaron Brewer has had a really good training camp, looking to be the starting left guard for this team. Ben Jones, really underrated center. Nate Davis has come on the last couple years at right guard, and then Dylan Raydunes there at right tackle, their 2nd round pick last year from North Dakota State. Hopefully he can be better this season. Nicholas Petit-Ferre is the guy you want to watch out for on the OT depth, and then your interior depth, Daniel Munyer and Jamarco Jones. Offensive coaching, they are ranked 16th, and they have an average ranking of 19th. 18.71. But the reason why this team could make the playoffs for sure is that defense. Their defense is definitely the strength of this team, as I have them ranked 12th, which I think is higher than most people would have them. So, starting with their run defense, I have them ranked 12th. This is just a really cohesive defense. They play really well together. Harold Landry is more of a pass rusher, but he's a solid run defender. Jeffrey Simmons, Denico Autry are very good run defenders, along with Naquan Jones. Bud Dupree is more of a pass rusher. David Long Jr., Zach Cunningham, both can play the run. Cunningham's really going to be more of your thumper, downhill guy. David Long's, pursuer, edge setter type thing. And then Monty Rice is more of your cover linebacker. DeMarcus Walker, Rashad Weaver to watch out for on the edge. Tyre Tart, Deshaun Hand. A guy that really didn't work out in Detroit. Showed some flashes early on. Wonder what they can get out of him here in Tennessee. And then Dylan Cole is a guy to watch out for. More of a versatile player, kind of jack of all trades, master of none there. Pass rush, I have them at 8th. Really solid 4. Harold Landry, phenomenal pass rusher, one of my favorite players in the league. He just really took the next step last season. Jeffrey Simmons will be a top 3 interior defensive lineman by season's end. I can guarantee you that. Denico Autry, really solid veteran. And Bud Dupree, another year removed from that injury, should do him very well there as well. Got to keep an eye on Rashad Weaver on the edge, and then DeMarcus Walker and Naquan Jones in the interior. Moving on to their linebackers, I have them ranked 13th. I think it's a really solid trio, plus with David Long Jr. being your all-around guy, can play the run, can play the pass. Zach Cunningham's more of your run defender, early down worker guy, and then Monty Rice comes in as your dime linebacker and nickel linebacker as well. Dylan Cole, we talked about, jack of all trades, master of none there. And then their secondary, I have ranked 23rd. They're just young and unproven. I think Caleb Farley can be an absolute stud in this league if he is able to stay healthy. Christian Fulton took a big step this past season. Really solid man cover corner. Elijah Molden's currently their slot, but I think Roger McCree is going to end up replacing him just because he's more agile, athletic, better side to side. But both those guys, really solid options there. And then veterans Buster Skrine, Brian Body Calhoun behind them. Guys to watch out for. Kevin Byard's probably, for my money, the best safety in football. He's just an absolutely phenomenal football player. Amani Hooker, really good safety 2. And A.J. Moore Jr. there, really good safety 3. Byard and Amani Hooker, by the way, were the highest graded duo from PFF. Just something to note there. And then defensive coaching, 8th. Mike Vrabel's a phenomenal defensive coach. Shane Bowen's a phenomenal DC. Home field advantage, I have them ranked 30th for an average rank of 13.84. Moving on to their overall team here. They are my 18th best team in football with the 23rd best offense, 12th best defense, 28th best special teams, and then the 5th best culture. I think Mike Vrabel is a top 5 head coach in this league. He has proven it time and time again. With less talent, he has been able to do more than other people. Average rank there, 16.70. So we move on to their strengths and weaknesses here. Strengths, definitely defensive coaching. Phenomenal group of coaches here on the defensive side of the ball, led by Mike Vrabel. Their front 7 is freaking phenomenal, man. And then they have a youthful secondary that I think can play better than they are projected to as well. Weaknesses, I have a lack of explosiveness on offense besides Derrick Henry. There's not really anybody that jumps off the page besides Treylon Burks. There for their offense, receiver depth is, not great. I think they have 4, but outside of that, you don't have Robert Woods to start the season, so you really have 3, and Des Fitzpatrick isn't a great 4th receiver there. And then their offensive line, I just think that they're, undermanned there for the time being. I think that, if Dylan Radunes can take a step up, if Aaron Brewer can take a step up, and Nate Davis, that they can be more towards like the 16th best offensive line than towards the 26th, what I have them right now. But that is a wrap up for my number 18 team, the Tennessee Titans. And now moving on to my number 17 team, a team that I think a lot of people will be surprised I have them rated this high. I'm a little bit surprised they're this high. as well. But it is the Washington Commanders. Moving quickly into their key departures and additions. Not a ton from this team, not a lot of turnovers. So you have DeAndre Carter, returner last year, somewhat productive player for them, leaving. Adam Humphries is gone. Didn't really do much there. Brandon Scherf, their best offensive lineman, headed out the door. Tim Settle, super underrated interior defensive lineman. Matt Ioannidis, longtime interior defensive lineman for this team, heads out the door along with Landon and Collins. They trade for Carson Wentz here, which was definitely an interesting trade. They did give up a lot, but you could somewhat understand it where they needed a quarterback here. They went Jahan Dotson at receiver in the first round. Curtis Samuel's coming back from injury. They bring over Andrew Norwell from Jacksonville, basically swapping with Brandon Scherf. Bring in Trey Turner for a veteran guard. Logan Thomas is coming back from injury. And they draft Fedarian Mathis from Alabama. So moving into their offense, I have them rated right dead in the middle at 16th. Starting with their quarterback, who's rated 16th. A lot of people are going to argue with this, with Wentz. I do have him ahead of guys like Tannehill, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, Goff, just, a couple guys to name there. I really don't understand the hate from last season from Wentz. I also didn't really understand the trading of him by Indianapolis. I understand that he was terrible in the last game of the season. They don't ever want that to happen again, and it cost them. But Carson Wentz wasn't a bad quarterback by any means last season. He had his best season since his MVP year, in my opinion. But he just played his worst game of the season at the wrong time, and it cost the Colts a chance to make the playoffs. Behind him, you have Taylor Heineke, who played all of last season for him after Ryan Fitzpatrick went down, so veteran there. Sam Howell, who was my QB2, looks really good in preseason as well. Moving on to their running backs, man, they're 24th. They're just, oh, man. Antonio Gibson frustrates me because he should be able to be a DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne, Austin Eckler type player, and he's just not. He just struggles at being an actual running back. I almost feel like they'd be better placing him at slot receiver. They draft Brian Robinson Jr., who I thought was one of the more underrated backs in this league and looks to be their running back one from reports. J.D. McKissick as well will take snaps away from Gibson in the passing game, as he has been very productive there. And Jarrett Patterson as well is there from Buffalo, an undrafted free agent pickup last year. This, I think, will surprise a lot of people, this next ranking, their weapons being 11th for this team. Terry McLaurin, bona fide number one receiver, productive with whatever quarterback he plays with, similar to with DeAndre Hopkins. Curtis Samuel, good player. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's explosive with the ball in his hands, so I expect them to give him more designed touches. Jahan Dotson, I thought, was a first-round pick. Interesting fit here because they have a guy in Diami Brown who's very similar skill set and I thought was primed for a big role. I was hoping they would go with more of a Drake London or something like that, which is a skill set they don't have on their team, but they have him. Cam Sims, their big-bodied guy, productive in spurts last season, and then guys to keep an eye on. Dax Milne is probably the biggest guy to keep an eye on, maybe Alex Erickson winning that returner job. You got Logan Thomas at tight end, who's super steady, former college quarterback. John Bates was a draft pick last year. And then Cole Turner was a draft pick this year. So guys to keep an eye on there. O-line, one of the best O-lines in football, ranked 6th here, even losing Brandon Scherf. Charles Leno Jr. coming over from Chicago last season. Solid left tackle for them. Andrew Norwell is a really good guard. Chase Roulier, one of the most underrated centers in football. Wes Schweitzer, one of the most underrated guards in football. He gets a lot of hate. He's the worst piece on this offensive line, and he's still very good. And Sam Cosmi is one of the best up-and-coming tackles in football. Cornelius Lucas, Sadiq Charles, Chris Paul, notable guys there at tackle. And then interior, you have Trey Turner, Keith Ismail, Tyler Larson as well. Offense coaching, I have them ranked 29th. Just not a big fan of Scott Turner, personally. I liked his dad better in North Turner. Scott Turner just hasn't really proven anything yet. and their average rank is 15.49 there. Moving on to the defense for Washington here. They are going to be ranked 14th on defense. Starting with their run defense is also ranked 14th. I think Washington gets a reputation of being a really good pass rush, but people don't understand how good their run defense is as well. Chase Young is currently similar to Jadeveon, where he's better as a run defender than he is a pass rusher. But I think that he has the ability to be one of those really special pass rushers in this game. Deron Payne, really solid interior guy, just absolutely mauls guards in there, man. Jonathan Allen, better pass rusher than a run defender, but still a very good run defender. And Montez Sweat is an absolute elite run defender, which people don't give him enough credit for, especially being smaller guy out there on the edge. Cole Holcomb, guy to keep your eye on, had a really nice season last year for Washington. I expect him to continue to progress. He can do all three facets of being a linebacker. He can cover, can defend the run, and he can blitz. Jamin Davis, I think, cannot be any worse than he was last season, so expect him to take a step up. And then I have David Mayo in there as their other base linebacker, which is okay. Guys to look out for in the run defense, James Smith-Williams is a really good run defender, kind of that edge interior hybrid. Shaka Toney, more in the pass rush, but a guy to keep an eye on. Casey Toohill as well. And then in the interior, probably Fedarian Mathis and F.A. Obata. Linebackers, I like Khaleke Hudson, but he's more of the safety linebacker hybrid type, where he's better in coverage. Pass rush, I have them ranked 4th. I don't really need to explain this much. Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Montez Sweat is absolutely elite there. F.A. Obata, James Smith, decent edge guys there as well. And then Fedarian Mathis is a good pass rusher from Alabama. Moving on to their linebackers, I'm ranked 26th. Just, they just need to prove more. Cole Holcomb's proven. Jamin Davis has to step up better. And then one of David Mayo, Khaleke Hudson, Dejon Harris needs to step into that third linebacker role. Secondary, I have them ranked 16th. They're a pretty solid secondary. Definitely underrated. Kendall Fuller, probably the most underrated corner in football right now, I would say. One of the best. His technique's just really solid, and he never gets beat. William Jackson can't be any worse than he was last season for the Commanders. Benjamin St. Juste should take a step up. Cornell, there's there as your dime. And Danny Johnson, Christian Holmes are not bad depth as well. Cameron Curl, solid safety, can play in the box, can play, man-up tight ends. He's more of your downhill run defense safety. He's all right in coverage. And then Bobby McCain, who was really impressive watching tape back, just does a lot. He was a former slot corner, got moved to safety 2020, I think, in Miami, and then has played it here since coming to Washington and has been really good at it. They drafted Percy Butler, which was an interesting pick, and then they also have Derek Forrest there as well. Defensive coaching, I have him at 21st. Solid from Ron Rivera, but I think he's fallen off the last couple of years there. And Jack Del Rio is also a very experienced guy. Home field advantage, I have him 31st. Sorry, Commanders fans, but you don't exactly have the greatest home field for an average rank of 15.49. We go to their overall team here. They are the 17th overall team. 16th best offense, 14th best defense, 18th for special teams, and 21st for culture, with an average rank of 16.15. Moving into their strengths and weaknesses, I think their strengths are their weapons, definitely upgraded with Curtis Samuel coming back and the drafting of Jahan Dotson in the first round. Their O-line is exceptional, one of the best in the league and one of the most underrated in the league as well. Pass rush, top 5 pass rush in the league, just waiting for Chase Young to come back off of injury. And then weaknesses, I have offensive coaching rated pretty low on my list there. Running game as well. They don't really have a bell cow right now unless if Brian Robinson does win the starting job, which he could, but I think they're still going to go with Gibson. And then linebackers, they just need to prove more. So then my next team here is going to be a little bit interesting. It's going to be a little bit of an explanation. They are ranked 14th. And the reason they are ranked 14th is because there are 2 teams behind them that are in the NFC that I have making the playoffs. But this team from the AFC which is a little bit of a spoiler, ends up missing out on the playoffs just due to the way this was structured and the teams that I have ahead of them. So coming in at my number 14 team, which I think I am probably one of the highest people on this team, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I hate saying that as a Patriots fan, but the Pittsburgh Steelers do have a very nice roster. So we start with their key departures and additions. Keith Butler is out as DC. Ben Roethlisberger, longtime quarterback here, retires. Juju Smith-Schuster heads to Kansas City. Trey Turner is gone. Stephon Tuitt also retires, longtime interior defensive lineman. Joe Schobert leaves, and Joe Hayden is out the door as well. Key additions, Terrell Austin comes in as DC. They bring over Brian Flores as defensive assistant. He may be the best defensive assistant in football right now. Mitch Trubisky brought in to play quarterback, trying to hang on to his starting job as Kenny Pickett is really picking it up in preseason and potentially taking that job from him. George Pickens and Calvin Austin are brought in to further backbone the receiving core. James Daniels is brought over from Chicago as a massive upgrade there to their interior offensive line. Mason Cole's brought over from Minnesota. Larry Ogunjobi, Tyson Alualu comes back from injury. Miles Jack, big signing for Pittsburgh, comes over after Jacksonville released him. They grab Levi Wallace as a solid CB2 option, and DeMonte KZ comes over from Dallas. So we move to their offense, and this is the biggest reason I don't have them making the playoffs. I have them at 28th for offense, starting with their quarterback is ranking 31st. No matter if it was Trubisky or Pickett, it wouldn't really change for me. Personally, I think Trubisky could thrive here, but I'm not betting on it. I think that he, was run out of Chicago for a reason. I think the majority of it was Matt Nagy, yes, but I still think that he was definitely part of the problem there. Just didn't read the field very well, was very, hesitant at times. And Pickett was my QB5 for no other reason than I just felt like his ceiling was lower, and there was certain things about his game that were just, I don't think that even with any coaching they can improve. He bailed from clean pockets like there's no tomorrow. Like he just there would just be a clean pocket and he would just roll or bail. And I think that that's something that is going to stick with Kenny Pickett and get him into trouble at the next level here. Moving on to the running backs, I have him ranked 13th. And Steelers fans are going to be pissed, but I love Najee Harris. But, dude, look at the people behind him and tell me that they should be higher than 13th. I mean, they don't have anybody. Benny Snell's trash. Anthony McFarland Jr., I'm hoping for more out of. I liked him coming out of Maryland. I thought he would have been a really good receiving back, but he just hasn't been that. And then they don't really have anybody besides that. So it's just really all on Najee. And I'm kind of scared for Najee because I feel like he's going to be a CMC situation where he's just going to be used so often that eventually he's just going to get hurt and he's going to stay hurt like McCaffrey's been for the last 2 seasons. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen to Najee because he's a phenomenal back. He's a better pass catcher than I ever thought he was going to be. And he's just really patient, really nice vision for a running back. Moving into the weapons, they are 7th. Chase Claypool, I think, could be a bona fide number 1 receiver if he stops celebrating in late game situations and just balls out. Super physical receiver. Mapletron's prime for another big year. Deonte Johnson was one of the best receivers in football last year. Phenomenal route runner. He just has drop issues. And if it wasn't for him just looking up the field instead of looking at the ball, he probably would have been like a top 5 in terms of production for a receiver last year. George Pickens, the people that said George Pickens wasn't a first-round talent, I don't understand what tape they were watching. This dude is a freaking menace, man. Like, even in the run-blocking game, like, this dude is no chill. He is similar to that A.J. Brown mold where he's just super physical. He will out-body you to win the ball. I mean, he's a freak athlete. He's a phenomenal football player. I couldn't believe he fell to the second round. Calvin Austin, super speedy guy, brings something to the table that Pittsburgh has been missing. They brought over Miles Boykin from the Ravens, and then they also have Gunnar Olszewski there as a returner. Steven Sims, another guy to keep an eye on as well to make the roster. Tight end, Pat Freiermuth, absolute stud, called it, thought Jacksonville should have taken him in the first round last year. but instead he falls to Pittsburgh. He's going to be an absolute stud. Sternberger didn't really work out in Green Bay. He had some off-the-field issues. If he stays, clear-headed, then he should be a solid tight end 2 for them. And then Zach Gentry's a good blocker for them. O-line, they're 30th. I mean, there's nothing here that gets me excited except Kevin Dotson and James Daniels. Dan Moore Jr. proved to be better than we thought he was last year. We'll see how they can develop him. Mason Cole's fine at center. And Okorafor, I couldn't believe the contract he got personally to stay there. Joe Haig, Jordan Tucker, decent guys there to back up. And then Kendrick Green and J.C. Hassenauer are guys to watch in the interior. Offense coaching, I have them ranked 27th. And on offense, they finished with an average rank of 23.65. Now, if there was ever a reason for Pittsburgh to make the playoffs, just like they did last year, it would be their defense. I mean, their defense is elite, man. They come in at 4th. Their run defense is 4th because they're nuts, man. T.J. Watt is, a stud run defender. He's not anything elite. He's not elite or anything, but he's a stud run defender. Cam Hayward's elite in that department. Ogunjobi is solid. Alualu's a really good run defender. Highsmith's a better run defender than a pass rusher in my book. He's got really good hustle, and he's able to get off blocks very well. Miles Jack's a good run defender. Devin Bush, that's not necessarily his game, but he's super athletic, good run and chase guy. Same with Spillane as well. Jannard Avery's a guy to watch on the edge depth there. Chris Wormley, Montravius Adams, Isaiah Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal, and Carlos Davis and Khalil Davis on the interior. They got a lot of guys there. Nothing really of note at linebacker. Pass rush, they're 1. Just the way these guys work together is crazy, man. They're able to really scheme up ways for each of these guys to get sacks. And to everyone saying TJ Watt's the best edge rusher in football, you are incorrect. Because a lot of the times TJ Watt gets a free rushers unblocked because of the guys that he has around him, and Cam Hayward. Ogunjobi is an even better pass rusher than Stephon Tuitt probably, and Highsmith. So you get even more looks for TJ Watt this year. And he did have a phenomenal season last year, but I just think that it wasn't everything that people, wiping it up to be. Linebacker-wise, they're ranked 4th. I got a phenomenal trio here of Jack, Bush, and Spillane. Miles Jack, I got into an argument with Jags fans. I think they just didn't utilize him right. And he's going to be the same player that he was before last season. Just absolute stud. Devin Bush, you're hoping can take that next step. Injuries have kind of held him back a little bit, so we'll see if he was that player that they traded up for at 10. Robert Spillane, really good player. Kind of came on the last 2 years, playing a lot for them. And then Ulysses Gilbert III is a guy that you should watch out for there. Secondary is their lowest ranking at 22nd. They're just fine. Like, Ahkello Witherspoon's a good corner. Like, I like him when he's out there. Levi Wallace is a fine cornerback too, nothing else. Cam Sutton's a good slot guy. Him and Justin Lane will probably compete for that. James Pierre, Arthur Mollett, decent guys in there. Minka Fitzpatrick, probably the most overrated safety in the league, being honest, but still a good player nonetheless. Terrell Edmonds they bring back here, who's fine. I mean, he's good at covering tight ends and being in the box. They bring in Carl Joseph, DeMonte Kazee for some solid depth there, but, fine secondary, nothing less, nothing more. Defensive coaching, I have them 3rd. Home field advantage, I have them 6th for an average ranking of 8.36. Definitely the best defense we have seen so far. So Pittsburgh, they're 14th overall. Come in at 28th for offense, 4th for defense, 3rd for special teams, and 3rd for culture. Mike Tomlin's an amazing coach, right behind Bill Belichick and Andy Reid for best coach in the league. And they average rank for them is 14.60. So then we go to their strengths and weaknesses here. And I have strengths coaching. Mike Tomlin's a phenomenal coach. He will get this team in a position they will probably not have a losing record. Weapons, really, really good. Upgraded them, getting Calvin Austin, George Pickens in here. Freiermuth's now tight end 1. They're primed for a big season, and they will continue to grow throughout the years. And then defense. I mean, their entire defense is freaking crazy, man. So defense is definitely a strength. Weaknesses, quarterback play. It's Trubisky or Pickett. So, we'll see what we get from either of those guys. Running back depth, nothing behind besides Najee Harris there. And then their O-line is obviously one of the worst in football. So that wraps up my number 14 team, and that wraps up my tier 4. What do you guys think of this? Do you think I got it right? Is there any teams that I missed here? I know someone's going to be saying the New England Patriots, and you would be 1,000% incorrect. But let me know where I went wrong. Let me know where I was right, what you thought of this video. But thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned on Monday for my tier 3, which is the playoff teams. Might make a separate video for New England because I'll talk about them way too much. You already know, but we'll see. But this was definitely the longest video. There was 8 teams in this tier. So thanks for bearing with me. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great day, and peace.